The idea of drop pods goes as far back as Robert Heinlein's 1959 novel Starship Troopers, when the mobile unit moved in what were basically called capsules. Star Wars had escape pods where C-3PO and R2-D2 would end up on Tatooine. The astronauts of Apollo 11 returned from the moon back to Earth in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969. The craft itself that they came back from was basically what science fiction today would call a drop pod. A small vessel designed to protect the passengers inside by entering orbit instead of ship docking. In today, most science fiction and movies and video games use drop pods for fast and efficient deployment of military resources. A very popular game that comes to mind for me is Halo 2, when Master Chief and squads of ODST landed on the Delta Halo ring using their orbital drop pods. The UNSC are reliant on this tool because of their special units, such as the Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. ODSTs are the primary use of drop pods, but not exclusively, as Spartans can also benefit from fast transportation. Smaller variants can also be used to deploy special power weapons. With human cargo, it is even said to have lower overall attrition rate than a standard dropship insertion, due to each soldier deployed individually instead of the risk of multiple passengers in one craft. Even if anti-aircraft fire destroyed several drop pods, that didn't compare to the hundreds that would have already reached the surface. Especially when the mortality rate of deaths by downed pelicans, you're better off transported in a pod. These pods are launched from magazine-fed coil guns and generally take a few minutes to land after release. These pods also had braking systems to guide the pod. While limited in maneuverability, your pod's AI has already assumed the dangers and avoided enemy defenses. According to the wiki, ODSTs deployed during a meteor shower is a great way to disguise pods when falling into atmosphere. Once close to land, chutes are deployed similar to an umbrella, a series of retro thrusters are engaged, and the pod is rapidly deaccelerating before the controlled crash. The interior is pressurized and the entrance hatch is blown off by detonation chargers for the user to be released. In order to be comforted, there is a single seat for the trooper to sit in, which also contains communication equipment in front of you with screens of your combat team to stay connected. This titanium carapace armored vehicle is perfect for increased attrition or infiltration by Spartans and ODSTs. Even their enemies, the Covenant and later the Banished, have a long history of drop pod use that normally releases elite warriors and brutes. The difference is the lack of AI-guided drop pods, and instead have controls for the warrior inside to manually guide them. Re-engineered Forerunner technology is also used for evasive maneuvers and braking actions that can remove the violent effect of rapid deacceleration, which comforts the user inside from shock. Banished drop pods are a bit different, as they remove comfort for maximum speed and shock value. Their pods were made to inflict as much damage as possible before the brute exits. Banished dreadnoughts in Halo Infinite also have drop bases, which are used to drop a mass amount of equipment and quick building if you ever played Halo Wars 2. The Flood even have their own dispersal pods, a more natural bioformed creation by the parasite that which landed can immediately disperse spores, pure and combat forms, to infect warships and its residents. From the Great Crusade to the 41st millennium, full-sized Space Marine legions used orbital insertion and planetary assaults as an alternative to Thunderhawks and other dropships. The design philosophy is terror and surprise. Legions like the World Eaters and the Space Wolves have benefit greatly as it can land directly on enemy lines. They are fired from their battle barge and travel 12,000 kilometers per hour, making any air defense systems difficult to find their target. They are exactly how drop pods work, and also have their own AI guidance system called a machine spirit to deliver them safely. You can imagine a group of tech priests praying before launch to give safe passage for the Astartes. Praying is an effective tool for avoiding violent orbital entry and hazard zones. Many chapters have enough pods to bring down the entire chapter into combat. Rabute Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, named this tactic Steel Rain in the Codex Astartes because of its speedy, devastating deep strikes of drop pods. When landed, a squad of Marines can appear with a Stormbolter turret to protect its passengers. Other types of pods in 40k are the Chaos Dreadclaw. This variant of the drop pod is used to deploy legionnaires and can be used to lift off the atmosphere after extracting troops. Orcs would also have their own harsh crash capsules, as their imagination would probably be powerful enough to protect them in what is basically a metal can. The Tyranids have their own bioform pods called Mycetic Spores, and we see them deploy Tyranid warriors, Termagons, Hormagons, the Gene Stealers, and the Carnifex as deadly cargo from their hive ships. There are different types of drop pods in Titanfall. Both the IMC and Frontier Militia use drop pods for squad deployment of riflemen. Their special quirk is distortion braking, technology that allows drop pods to deaccelerate to survival speeds by a visible donut-like distortion effect in the sky, which is a result from braking. While useful for fast deployment, it seems to be the weaker on the list as it lacks defense capabilities besides a self-destruct mechanism that could only be more a danger to its passengers. Titans can even walk through the drop pods and kill grunts before they step out. The Mark 8 medical lifeboat is a type of escape pod used for rapid evacuations from doomed spacecrafts and injured personnel. We see Jack Cooper utilize one when deployed, and we can see that these life pods were also used for offensive deployment. Titans are encased in drop pods, launched from orbit, and tear apart once breaking the atmosphere, allowing the Titan to land without difficulty. In Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the United States Army supplied its soldiers with drop pod deployment methods in the year 2054. It had enough seats for a team of assault troops, thrusters for brakes, and computer display at the ceiling to display the view of the pod's underside cameras. Judging from the game, it seems like drop pods were not fast enough to avoid AA guns. For some reason, a blast from a shell caused the shield doors to open, which feels like a major design flaw for something that shouldn't be automated to open before landing. Dwarves use a spacecraft to move rock and stone operated by the Deep Rock Galactic Corporation. Their drop pods are made of a tough metallic red material. A single thruster at the top or bottom, depending on where it's facing, is used for acceleration upon launch, and massive drills at the bottom to enter caverns. Once landed, a safety barrier retracts and an access ramp is extended, which I argue is probably the more accessible use of drop pods, considering even wheelchair-bound occupants can safely exit. Once departed, the pod prepares for launch and returns back through the entry tunnel, which can also be reused for extraction upon landing. After the Aurora's descent, life pods were released, including the surviving player. These life pods have inflated flotation devices for sea landing. Multiple passengers can use these pods, and arguably may be the most unsafest vehicles to use due to the lack of controls for maneuverability, fragile materials, and the dangerous creatures below the sea that could strike at the pod. If the survivors weren't ripped to pieces, the floats could have been torn, leaving its occupants to slowly suffocate at the bottom of the ocean. The second Tiberium War first-generation drop pods entered service, delivering veteran infantry squads inside. In the third Tiberium War, new drop pod designs were used and had similar designs to average Apollo spacecraft pods. My personal favorite Blizzard game introduced drop pods in Starcraft 2, which was used to drop ground units for the Terran Dominion. You can use it to deploy Marines, but I always liked the Spec Ops unit. Even the Zerg had drop pods called sacks, which reminded me of space jellyfish. In Half-Life 2, headcrab shells were deployed designed to release a payload of infectious headcrabs to destroy resistant bases. They are fired from a type of artillery and I believe counts as a drop pod for something that basically stores and transports a lifeform cargo. While not a video game, Eggman has his own drop pods, specifically the Egg Pod, or that's at least what I think he calls it. I think it is entirely fair to assume this is the most powerful type of drop pod on the list due to the extreme comfort of drones Robotnik has to his disposal, including hygiene. It comes from his personal satellite, and the pod also has weaponized drones. The pod is a standard white egg design with thrusters on the bottom, a safety ramp for accessibility, and a room for someone inside. Arguably, one could say the egg would be hatched upon landing. I'm sure you have been waiting for this long enough. Democracy's near-suicidal pods were invented as a counterattack of any oppressive socialist regime. Due to lacking air superiority with dropship deployments, Helldivers were deployed in supersonic pods equipped with stabilizers and extreme shock absorbers that can drop into any type of environment. They have been used for deploying support weapons and sentry machines to support the diver. Apparently in the first Galactic War, Hellpods did not have a lift mechanism and had to physically climb in and out of Hellpods, which is funny to me since supply delivering pods already had this technology. This feature wasn't implemented until the Second Galactic War. I mean, imagine the inconvenience. This is probably the most uncomfortable pod on the list. However, style-wise, it is probably one of the best for looking like an actual bullet. These pods have all the usual requirements such as thrusters and brake flaps to deaccelerate before landing. Helldivers are even given the option to their own paint job on it, which is truly freedom at best.